The pen is a tool, the canvas is a tool, but AI art is an artist. And that is the fundamental thing that the other team couldn't understand in today's debate. And it's why AI art cannot count as real art. Two questions to finally bring clarification to this debate. Does AI art count as art? And second, what are the effects on culture, history, education? The first thing they did to tell us was that it was probably going to be more creative than a human, and I've got 4 reasons why this isn't true. First, this simply cannot be true. There is an infinite perception in human ingenuity that could lead to infinite amounts of creativity. But the fact that if you want to create AI art, in most cases, you have to limit a prompt to a certain number of words that already hinders the ability for it to be creative, for it to actually show technique, for it to do any of the things that Chris has already told you. That is why simply it cannot be more creative than a human. But second, that humans allow the ability to show expressionism about our own emotions. We say that words in prompts are already a huge hindrance to our ability to write down and show what we think we want to demonstrate in art, and that means that the prompts that you use to make AI art will never lead to it being more creative. Third, that even if we think that our form of art is significantly better, what we've told you at Chris was actually true forms of art was the ability for you to express your emotions, your hardships into art, and that is something that cannot be encapsulated in AI art. We're not going to be looking in history at the Mona Lisa anymore. Now we're going to be looking at Peter Griffin and Lois Griffin in random forms of AI art. We think that detracts from the ability to learn from art as a form of history, as a form of education. It is something that we only get on our side of the house. Fourth, then, even if you get more creativity on your side, we don't actually think this is the better form of creativity, because just looking at something that is more creative doesn't necessarily mean that you yourself are going to be more creative. So even if they could prove that they have the more creative art form, they couldn't prove that people were likely to become more creative. So comparatively then, the value of hard work is retained on our side. We get historical expression and actual education, and we get true form, or at least the better form of creativity. Then they tried to tell us on effects on culture that 1, people are more likely to go into art and be inspired. 3 reasons why this is wrong. First, no, this is simply not art. We've just clarified this. Second, that people thinking it looks bad and then are somehow randomly going to be inspired isn't actually a viable way for art to continue to survive. We don't think that the people who are using AI art are likely people who are probably going to join art. They're people who are memeing. There are people who are making Peter Griffin posters. There are people who are in companies that couldn't be bothered to find an artist, so they decided to make AI art. That is the people that are using it. They are not going to be inspired to get more art, so that metric for them to be able to win in terms of more artists is already lost then. Third, that even if we think that people should be inspired to find other ways to go into art, we think that looks like nature, we think that looks like expressionism, we think that looks like the hardships in their life, not just because they've realized that the AI art sucked and then they decided that they wanted to do a better job at that. They could have equally tried to do their own art based on something like nature and then decided, hey, this isn't good, I want to be incentivized to go even further, to break my bonds of creativity, to become infinitely better at art that is symmetric either way. Second, that it's not going to damage art forms, and it's going to look bad enough to where people can differentiate it. I've got a few responses to this as well. First, well, the people who are using it, like I've already established, are people in companies who want to do marketing. They don't really care. They don't need it. They just need it to be simple. And also, second, that people who are being able to differentiate this, I think, actually lack that ability that Fiona has asserted. That I think Fiona and Ada are clearly very good artists, and they think everybody has that expertise to be able to find the reasons why AI art isn't good or why it can be differentiated from normal art. But I really don't think that is true. I think people do actually very often will not notice that there's only 4 fingers. They will not notice that maybe the shadows aren't correct. For normal people who are just using a prompt, they won't be able to understand that there are things that are completely inaccurate about AI art. They had to be able to prove it and not just assert it. And for the day-to-day people, even if they know they're inaccurate, they're likely not going to care, and that is going to damage the true meaning of art itself and going to damage the ability for artists to be able to make a living. I'll take your point now. No, we think it is considered art because it's created by a human, because it's creative, because it wasn't bound to words by a prompt. Okay, the last thing that they told us was that, it's just another tool thing. We already told you in my intro that that's not the case. This is it just being replaced. This is the artist being replaced in itself. Most artists are either going to oppose this or they're going to be normal people who use it and simply do not care. It isn't a tool. We don't think it's a tool. We think it's an ability for people to be lazy and for an ability for people to not care about art and for the education of our society. It is extremely important that we actually have true art being expressed so that in the times of the future we can look back and see, okay, this is the nuance and what people believed in that society. Comparatively, artists make a better living. We gave them the characterization, we gave them the mechs, we gave them the impact. They never could win this debate.